Welcome, and thank you to everyone who may come across this. My name is Mike, and I'm here today to combine ancient spiritual philosophy with modern science in an effort to help us all live a better life. Sounds bold enough, right? Well, let's get to it. So, I consider myself a Taoist, or a follower of the Tao. The Tao is an ancient Chinese philosophy that basically describes the way everything works in this vast universe. One of the most popular symbols from Taoism is the yin and yang, which demonstrates the balance between positive and negative as a cooperative action, not two separate and competing events. Light is only the absence of dark, and dark is only the absence of light, basically, right? They can't exist without each other. Now, one of the less popularized aspects of Taoism, but one that any reader of the Tao's centerpiece, the Tao Te Ching, will be familiar with, is the concept that we can't really see the Tao, or the way, as they call it. All we see are manifestations that give us clues as to how the Tao works. While the ultimate Taoist goal is to live exactly in line with the Tao, we can't ever truly see it, which leads to the inability to accomplish said goal. The best idea we have of living perfectly in line with the Tao comes from Chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching, in which Lao Tzu lays out 7 virtues of water. And as we all know, water is only responsible for our entire existence, nothing important. So I will expand on these ideas as we move further down the rabbit hole here, but I'd like to go over them briefly and ask that you keep them in the back of your mind as we continue. First, water always dwells at the right location. Second, water fills with great, even arguably infinite depth. Thirdly, water gives with great kindness to all. Fourth, water acts with great integrity. That is to say, when still, it perfectly reflects its environment. Fifth, water rules by great administration. It provides equally to all. Sixth, water handles events with great capability, mostly due to its versatility, really. And finally, the 7th virtue taught by Lao Tzu is that water moves with great timing. So let's keep those ideas fresh and switch from the spiritual side of things to the scientific side for a second. So, science has been filled with discoveries, tons of them, which every talk I've ever seen, they all seem to lay over it. We're going to get to the brass tacks pretty quickly here, so let's all pay attention for 1 second. Everything physical in the world is made up of arrangements of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. Atoms are made out of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Most people are familiar to this point, but quantum mechanics has literally zoomed in to each of these particles and found that they are made of even smaller bits. Now, I was careful to say bits and not particles because one of the fundamental principles of quantum mechanics is that something can be a wave and a particle at the same time. The short thesis, or my thesis, of wave-particle duality is that the particles we detect are fluctuations of the wave. When the wave bounces down, that's the particle that we're seeing. The long thesis is called the double slit experiment, and it's a must-see for anybody interested in quantum mechanics. The big idea we see start to emerge is that quantum mechanics is seeing things we thought we would never find, things we never knew existed for that matter. Just for reference and to blow your mind a little bit, the tip of a pen right here could fit 1 billion quarks, which are the fundamental nuclear particles of quantum mechanics. That's a 1 with 18 zeros behind it. That's a massive amount on a little tip of a pen. Quantum mechanics has shown us how the fabric of the universe works. And isn't it funny that the Tao, as described, is basically the fabric of how the universe works? Perhaps the Tao was maybe the original quantum theory without even knowing it, which in itself would probably be the most Tao thing ever. If you're familiar with the Tao, you'll understand what I'm talking about. We may not be able to see the Tao, but in the last 100 years, we have been able to see the quantum level of the world, And the stories coming from both spiritual and scientific thought seem to have more in common than not. Let's begin connecting some of these dots now. Quantum particles are always in the right spot. Take the electron, right? It can only exist at certain distances away from the nucleus called orbits. If a charge is given to an electron, it will jump either to another orbit, or if the charge is not perfect, it'll escape into space. So whether the charge you're giving it is properly designed to jump orbits, or it's too powerful, or anywhere in between for that matter, the electron moves to what can then be dubbed the right spot, noting that the definition of right seems to be dynamic. In this way, the quantum world is seen dwelling in the right location, just as in the first virtue of water. Water naturally flows to the right point, and what determines right can be the water itself. A humble Taoist, then, will always reach the right point by the most natural avenues available. Popular culture would call this going with the flow, which, not so ironically, draws on water for its basis. Similarly, quantum particles have been discovered to take the path of least resistance, or one could say go with the flow. Flows of water come from deep pools, oceans even, which are very similar to truly virtuous people. As to say, not everything about them is apparent at first glance, and what you see may be the figurative tip of the iceberg. In this same manner, quantum particles are only the tip of the iceberg, with the rest of the iceberg being the quantum waves. While the particle may give some insight, it is only a product of its wave environment. The particle is super aware of its environment, though, feeling with great depth, and more importantly, comprehending those feelings. A Taoist, then, must do the same. All 7 of the virtues of water can be observed in quantum mechanics. Those first 2 I just explained, but you can also see acting with great integrity and handling with capability, both observable in the interactions between the quantum fields. Each particle is completely capable of each act it may commit at any given time. And as for integrity and administration, quantum mechanics knows nothing but the truth. And seriously thinking about it, I would argue that the truth is actually a byproduct of quantum mechanics. Also, consider how quantum mechanics gives with great kindness. A small group of 12 particles and 6 energy forces gives rise to the entirety of existence, human or otherwise. I'd consider that giving with great kindness. And finally, in regards to moving with great timing, man knows no scale smaller than the quantum scale. Remember the 1 billion quarks on the pen tip from earlier? They interact, destroy, and recreate more times in 1 second if you counted every single year the Earth has been in existence. A millisecond contains eons of generations of quantum data. How's that for moving with great timing, right? One other quick note that shouldn't be forgotten is the amount of absolute balance in the quantum world. I mentioned the yin and yang at the start of this talk, and quantum mechanics mirrors it perfectly with its matter and antimatter pairings. On an even deeper level, though, quantum entanglement experiments have actually proven that you can combine 2 quantum particles or entangle them, then separate these particles by thousands of miles, and anytime you measure one of the particles, the other particle automatically becomes the opposite orientation. And so if you measure this one as down, the other one is automatically up. The balance of the quantum world stretches incredible distances at a rate faster than the speed of light, which means literally in no time at all as far as humans are concerned. So then, how do we apply all of this to ourselves? It begins with the principles. Focus on going with the flow and feeling where that flow is going. The more you understand the flow, the more truthfully you can paint its picture in your mind. Be capable and act with great kindness, administrating the flow equally to all as a reflection of themselves. And don't do all this when the time is wrong. Don't even do it when the time is right, but as it happens. So, grasping these abstract principles can prove challenging. What usually happens is we conclude that we're unable to comprehend them, and we give up the pursuit of trying to understand and just shuffle the ideas to the back of our brains where we keep all of our other unexplained metaphysical ideas that we've abandoned over the years. So, I'm going to close out this talk by breaking down the principles a little further and interpreting how I imply them. Well, we start with dwelling in the right location, which really is a metaphor for being humble. How so? Well, water always flows to the lowest point, which it can still give from. And the natural motion of the electron is always towards lower energy orbits. The humble Taoist then finds himself occupying areas that others may say are too low, metaphorically or literally, as he understands that it is these natural lows which give rise to all the excitement that happens. In order to do this properly, you may realize a theme by now. Number 2, we must feel with great depth. In the emotional sense, make sure you actually feel all of your feelings. All too often these days, people have a feeling and immediately repress it because they don't agree with it, or even society doesn't agree with it. Just like the quantum particle is the tip of the quantum wave iceberg, your feelings are the tip of your iceberg of consciousness. In order to spiritually feel these things with the proper depth, we need to exercise the thoughts. Even the bad ones, especially the bad ones, to be honest, because they lead to growth by overcoming them. One of the best and most popular ways to exercise thought is the art of meditation. Meditation could be its own entire talk, so we'll save it for another time. But moving along, the next couple of virtues are a little easier to interpret. The water gives life to all available, and the few quantum bits that exist give life to the entirety of the universe. Just like both water and the quantum world, we basically need to build the best version of ourselves in order to give it away to all with great kindness. Another easy concept is acting with integrity. The quantum world, through a phenomenon known as superposition, which is worth a Google when you're bored, superposition reflects all possible states of a quantum wave happening simultaneously. That's a more pure version of truth than we can even really comprehend. What we can comprehend, though, is how the water reflects its environment absolutely, whether those reflections are good, bad, or indifferent. Always keep in mind it's easy to tell the truth when it's beneficial, but it's important to tell the truth when it works against you so that you may grow from it. In my mind, that's the hallmark of integrity. The remaining virtues string together everything else. The only way to achieve great capability is to feel with great depth. The more you understand the universe, the better your capability of interacting with it. Likewise, the only way to have great administration is to give with great kindness. Your ability to administer will only grow as you administer, and the way to do that in line with the Tao is to simply give. And this isn't giving in a material sense. If you really want a challenge to level up in life, give somebody something without physically giving them anything. As for the timing aspect of things, have you ever heard someone say they were in the right place at the wrong time, or any combination of right and wrong, place and time? The inherent problem, though, is that we only know our timing was good or bad after the fact. So how do we move with great timing when we don't know what great timing is until afterwards? Well, we do that by simply living in line with the other 6 virtues. By being in the right place, feeling with depth, giving with kindness, acting with integrity, administrating and handling with capability, you, just like water, just like the Tao, just like the quantum world, will have impeccable timing. Thank you for listening.